Good morning, Recruiting Gym Junkies. How are you? I hope you're well for another fantastic week at the coalface. Many of us will have benefited from a bank holiday weekend. For those of us that were in Ireland, then we would have had a 4-day week last week with the May Day bank holiday. In the UK, we would have had Friday off to celebrate VE Day. And what was interesting is that over VE Day, we had a lot of our elderly neighbours in the street come out and just sit on the end of their drives, socially distanced. But it was interesting to see the number of chats that were going on, but also the number of pictures that were being shared. There were pictures being shared of our street on VE Day. The house directly across from us was a bonfire because there was no house there. Where I'm sitting right now was not here. But what was really poignant in those pictures is that there was a lot of children, and there were lots of children that were 6, 7, 8 years old. And those children on VE Day 75 years ago would never have known a time where they weren't at war. Crazy, right? Just imagine being 7 or 8 and living on rations that whole time, being under wartime conditions, seeing bombing going on, people in your street going to war, not coming back from war. It was a truly horrific thing to happen. Millions of people died. And I've been guilty over the last week or so of being a little bit frustrated with the situation. But what was really good for me on VE Day is it did provide some perspective. Sure, the last 8 weeks has been extremely stressful, probably the most stressful of my entire life. I would almost say it makes having your first child easy, but maybe that's being blanked from my memory. But I think we've got to try and keep what's going on in perspective. It is very sad and tragic that healthcare workers and those that are protecting us are dying through COVID-19. It's tragic that many people are suffering from the disease and dying as well. But what we've got to remember is that it's not comparable to what went on during the Second World War. And for those countries that are still going through war in today's times. And so I think as we start a week and progress through a week, we've got to be thinking with renewed perspective around what can we make of the next 5 days. Sure, we're not living the life that we wanted to lead, but with luck and a little bit of good fortune, this will be just a blip. It will be a few months of real hardship, followed by a lot of economic uncertainty, but let's keep it in perspective. And to that end, what I'd encourage everybody to do today is think about the conversations that you're going to have with candidates and clients this week. And recruitment is taking place. The UK is in the process of easing its lockdown. Countries such as Italy, Spain, Germany are easing their lockdowns, as they have been for the last few weeks in the Far East. And what we've got to think about is that companies will begin to move into a business as usual operations. They're going to begin to move people back into the workplace. They're going to begin to try and start the wheels turning of whatever changes and business model that they want. And so we've got to think about the conversations we're going to be having. And they should be pretty straightforward. And the questions we're going to ask are these to clients. What's your plans to make your workplace safe as lockdown eases? Why safety? Well, safety is still the primary concern and strategy of the UK government and the governments all over the world. And what we've got to do is just encourage employers and learn from employers on what are they doing to keep their environment safe. Some companies may not have the ability to have everybody socially distanced, so they might work in waves where they switch week in, week out. Others may be deciding to keep everybody working from home. Some people may be deciding to have outdoor meetings if the weather allows. But let's learn what companies are doing to keep their workplaces safe. Once we've learned what they're doing to keep them safe, ask them how are they going to be driving productivity? What is the strategic focus of the organization? How is that going to be impacting the workload on the staff that are on site? Remember, as we ease out of lockdown, it's going to be some really tricky times for employers, because whilst the workplaces might be opening, remember, as the schools aren't opening, many, many thousands of parents are going to be torn, right? They're going to be told, you can come into work, but yet they don't have any capacity to look after their children. That will create a tremendous amount of tension for individuals, but also for employers. We can ask employers, what's your strategy to support those parents that can't come into the workplace because they're still looking after children? What impact is the reduced productivity of those individuals going to have on your ability to do what's needed? I'm sensing there's some opportunity for some temporary and contract work, because companies may well leave people furloughed that just have children to look after, but still have workload to be executed. If the government's basically covering the costs of that individual, well, I can take a temp on that can work more flexibly and can deliver what we need, but without unnecessary stress on the staff that are furloughed. I know lots of employers where they've got work to do, but they furloughed their staff because the individual just physically can't work. I know from a personal perspective, I probably have 4 hours productivity spread through the day. Once I sort of look after my kids and support my wife doing her job at the same time as well. So engaging clients in just learning about their strategy. I think what we often forget in recruitment is we think we're in the business of sending CVs. For all the regular viewers on the show, we are not CV sending machines. We are buckets of market insight. We are bumblebees that go from one client to the next, and we pick up little nuggets of knowledge and we repackage that knowledge as honey, because it's that sort of insight that companies need. If you work in the manufacturing sector, today call 10 manufacturing companies and just ask them what are their plans to stay socially distanced, what's their plans to become productive or reignite production, but also keep their employees safe. You ask 10 companies that question, you now have nuggets. And that pollen, those ideas of pollen, you can repackage. You can do a blog, 5 things manufacturing companies can do that are keeping their staff safe as lockdown eases. Okay, or easing lockdown in manufacturing, or productivity in lockdown, or social distanced manufacturing. 5 tips. 5 tips for socially distanced manufacturing. What we're trying to do is we're trying to inspire our clients and be conduits to market intelligence. What we don't do as recruiters is package up that market intelligence. We don't see it as of interest, but yet there's plenty of organizations that are just market intelligence. They go and map an organization, or they collect together industry news and they repackage it and sell it as a report. You know, we've got to be recognizing the value of what we do every day. We could be calling, let's say, for example, if we're in the development space and we recruit IT people, and I know we've got a few IT recruiters on the phone on the show here today. I might talk to 10 developers, that's right, physically talk to 10 developers, and I might ask them what's their strategies to maintain productivity in lockdown. I might talk to 70 CTOs and find out their strategies to maintain productivity in lockdown. Remember, what we're doing here is providing insights. What we might do is call some clients and ask them what's their strategy to use temps and contractors strategically as lockdown eases. Remember, there's plenty of companies that made redundancies right at the start of this process because they wanted to protect themselves that will now be thinking, do I have the work? Don't I have the work? Do you have a list in your organization of companies that you knew made redundancies? Because if they cut too hard and too fast, they may well have workload that needs to be done, but they're not likely to recruit permanently because they'll be prohibited to because of sort of legislation around redundancies, but they may well take contractors to cover that workload. But now is the time to be really strategic with how we call our clients. We've got our clients that have furloughed staff bucket. We've got our clients that have made redundancies bucket. We've got our clients that are working full steam ahead virtually bucket. We've got our candidates that have been furloughed bucket. We've got our candidates that have been made redundant bucket. What we've got to think about is how are we engaging with those different buckets every day to remind them that we exist and we're the type of recruiter that they want to keep in touch with on a day in and day out basis. That's the opportunity for us in lockdown, is that sure, they may well be some recruiting. We will be learning about business critical roles. I've spoken about that in previous weeks. And we should continue to be asking clients about what are the business critical roles you'd have to recruit for. But we've got to be more than that. Remember, internal talent teams are going to be going through similar challenges to us. Have a bucket of all your internal talent teams and ring them up and say, how are you doing? How are you being impacted by the COVID crisis? I'm a follower of Hung Lee's Recruitment Brain Food. I recommend it to anyone, by the way. So type in Hung Lee Recruitment Brain Food or recruitmentbrainfood.com. It comes out on a Sunday. It's a fantastic newsletter. But it's primarily targeted towards the internal talent market. But they were talking about all the different ways. There's a presentation that's talking about all the different ways internal talent teams are going to be impacted. Talk to them, find out what their strategies are. How are they making themselves an essential rather than optional part of the workforce? Remember, companies that don't fire may well plan not to hire and therefore cut their internal talent teams. Angela's just chipped in and she said it feels slightly different. We can't afford to get left behind this week as companies' plans to return are formulating. Absolutely. Now is the time to engage with your clients. Now is the time to find out which ones are going to begin to become more productive. I was on a walk last night and I bumped into a friend, so we had a socially distanced chat in the park, and he was like, Alex, lockdown's being eased. That must be great for you. And my initial instinct was, no, it's not. No one's going to be recruiting, so no one's going to need any training. And it reminded me that the challenging nature of lockdown and how we've rationalized survival is by accepting the status quo. We've accepted the fact that companies might not be recruiting. But we've got to shift that. And as I walked away from that brief chat, I was like, right, come on, Alex, we've got to shake ourselves out of this. This morning, I was reminded of that because I got an email from Angela going, come on, Alex, this is what we're doing this week. By the way, Angela, I'm finishing this and I'm doing my email to that company that we spoke about. So, but we've got to make it happen. We've got to be ready for things to start moving. Last week, we spoke about what would you feel really bad about if we got to the end of the lockdown and you hadn't done those things? Now is the time to remind yourself of those activities. So let's just recap for the day. Call your clients. Call 5 or 10 clients in the same sector and ask them, what's your plan to return to productivity as lockdown eases? What's your strategy to safely protect your staff as lockdown eases? Just ask those 2 questions to 10 companies in one sector. You now have insight that you can share with everybody in that sector. If you've got a team, have one person do one type of industry, have another person do another type of industry, have another person do another type of industry. Collect back at the end of the day and share those insights. Share which ones have good plans and which have bad plans. Think about sharing those tips to your clients through a newsletter. Now is the time to be someone that people associate with knowledge that helps them succeed, rather than just someone that's waiting for a vacancy to fall in your lap. Everybody have a great day. I know we haven't asked this for a while, but we're on a really big push to get to over 1,000 users on the Recruiting Gym. So please share the Recruiting Gym with everybody. Share the link of this show with everybody so they can come and benefit from the Recruiting Gym stand-up, but also share this link with everybody so they can come and benefit as part of the community of recruitment and recruiters as well at members.recruitinggym.com. Please share that link with everybody, and hopefully we'll get to the 1,000 people. We want to get well over 1,000 by the end of May, and that would have been a fantastic achievement as we support more people through lockdown. See you, everybody, and take care. Bye.